Yeah, we're recording.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 4th meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Jeff Nye. I will serve as your chair of the board tonight. Due to the declared state of emergency in the nation, in Ohio, and in the township, and the order of the Director of the Ohio Department of Health, issued March 12, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 emergency, this meeting is being convened telephonically. The agenda for today's meeting is available on our website, www.andersontownship.org. Click Board of Zoning Appeals under Upcoming Events to review information for Case 4, 2021 BZA, Case 5, 2021 BZA, and Case 7, 2021 BZA. Again, if you're just joining us, Case 6, 2020. I'm sorry, did I say 2020 on all those? 2021. Case 4, 5, and 7, 2021 today. If you are here for Case 6, 2021, that case has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. The board will accept public testimony via phone or video during the public hearing for cases 4, 5, and 7, 2021. Before public testimony is provided, I'll read an oath and you must swear in before speaking. We ask that all participants mute their phones and only unmute if speaking. If you're going to speak, please state your name and address. It's also helpful to speak directly into your phone as opposed to using the speaker feature. At each of our board meetings, we encourage attendees to complete a sign-in sheet, including their name and address. If at some point during or after the meeting you'd like to electronically sign in, please send an email to pginty@andersontownship.org. That's pginty, P-G-I-N-T-Y, @andersontownship.org. Before the meeting begins, I'd like to identify the appointed Board of Zoning Appeals members that are participating in the meeting. I'm Jeff Nye. I am the chairman. John Halpin is with us. He's the vice chair. The other members are Steve Haber, Paul Shekels, and Paul Sion. I believe we have our two alternates on the line as well, Scott Lawrence and Amy Richardson. Other personnel joining the meeting via phone include Brad Bowers, Planner 1, PJ Ginty, Planner 1, and our Township Co-op, Stefano Vicino. Each of us will do our best to remember to state our name before speaking so that those joining us via phone can follow along. We thank you for joining us. We appreciate your patience and understanding in these unprecedented times. This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township Board of Trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber.
Here.
Mr. Sion.
Here.
Mr. Halpin.
Present.
Mr. Shekels.
Here.
Mr. Nye.
Here. Okay. Thank you for attending this teleconference meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware this meeting is being recorded. Now I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by staff. Then the appellant will present its case after being sworn in. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being sworn in and recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify or ask questions of the board after being sworn in and recognized by the chairman. If there's anyone who is neither for nor against, we'll ask you to speak with the opposition. I will also swear you in individually when I call on you rather than everyone all at once. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes other than we will not be hearing case 6, 2021 BZA.
Okay. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to approve the agenda as modified by the elimination of case 6-2021. Are there any objections from the board?
None.
Hearing none, that's approved by unanimous consent. The second agenda item is approval of the minutes for last month's meeting. I ask for unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes of last month's meeting. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda, item number 3, is consideration of case 4-2021 BZA, a variance request to allow an accessory structure in the side yard where accessory structures are only permitted in the rear yard, the property located at 211 5 Mile Road. I'd like to swear in staff, and then we'll have you present the case. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right. Please present case 4.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nye. Again, our first case tonight is going to be case 4-2021 BZA. The applicant is Scott Eckerd, who is the property owner of 211 5 Mile Road. The zoning for that property is A residence and E retail. And the request again is a variance request to allow an accessory structure in the side yard where accessory structures are only permitted in the rear yard per Article 5.2A7 of the zoning resolution. So the proposed development is the applicant is proposing the construction of a 24 by 40 foot barn in the side yard. The height of the structure will be 30 feet high. The barn meets the side, rear, and front yard setback requirements in the A zoning district. A little bit of history about the property. The property owners purchased the property in 2017, and the existing residence was constructed in 2018. The property owner was granted a variance through case 14-2017 BZA to allow the residence to be 39.5 feet high, where 35 feet is the permitted height. However, this residence is not constructed. So here is a property map that you can see of the property on 5 Mile Road. This is an aerial where you can see there is currently a gravel driveway. Oh, I'm sorry, let me get my pointer. There's currently a gravel driveway on the property, and this is a paved driveway. One of the conditions is that the gravel driveway be paved if approved. And the proposed location of the accessory structure is right in here, as you'll see in the site plan. Here you can see a topography map where you can tell it's a pretty steep slope going from the north to the south of the property. And then this is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. You can see here the proposed accessory structure to be 40 feet by 24 feet. And again, this meets the size requirements for the A zoning district. Yeah, we'll go through a couple pictures that staff took while on site. This is a view almost from the front of the driveway near 5 Mile Road. This is a view of where the accessory structure is proposed to be. You can see there's a large retaining wall currently on the site. Here's another view of where that barn is proposed to be constructed. This is a view from where the barn's proposed looking towards the house. This is an existing storage container that's on the site, and another one of the conditions of approval that staff has proposed is that this be removed if the variance request is approved. And then this is a view of the gravel driveway looking down towards 5 Mile Road. And then one more view of the location of the accessory structure, the proposed location. So we'll go through the staff findings now. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The proposed barn is in compliance with the size and setback requirements of Article 5.2A7. And if it were located in the rear yard, the applicant would be permitted to build an approximately 1,100 square foot accessory structure in the rear yard. The proposed barn will match the character and style of the existing residence. The central character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The proposed accessory structure is located 200 feet from the nearest residence to the southeast, and approximately 470 feet from the residence to the north. The proposed garage will be screened from the neighboring residences by existing vegetation and topography. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The owner's predicament could be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The barn could be located in the rear yard. However, due to the steep topography of the property, the location of the existing driveway, placing the proposed barn in the rear yard would require clearing of vegetation and extensive grading. Further, a retaining wall was constructed at the same time as the residence to allow for the existing parking area. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting a variance based on the distance and screening to adjacent residences, the topography of the property, and location of the existing driveways. I mentioned a couple of recommended conditions. So should the board approve this variance request, staff recommends the following conditions. The existing gravel driveway shall be paved with either an asphalt or concrete surface to be in compliance with 5.3 D3CI of the zoning resolution. And the existing storage container located in the southern portion of the property shall be removed once construction of the barn is complete. So these are the standards to be considered, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions for staff?
No, I do not.
Mr. Sine, any questions for staff?
No, thank you.
Eccles?
No.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, I do not have any either. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please unmute yourself, speak into your phone, and state your name and address, please?
Scott Eckerd, 211 5 Mile Road.
Good afternoon, Mr. Eckerd. Will you please raise your right hand? You swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Please tell us anything you'd like to tell us about your appeal.
Well, the only thing that I would say it's kind of a unique lot, and the proposed location is farther away from 5 Mile, and you cannot even see the structure. If you would look out a side window of the house, you would never be able to see it. So it's more to me in the back than it is to the side, even though I know that probably doesn't follow code, terminology. But just to give you an idea, it's 70 feet behind the house, farther up the hill. And the conditions that are proposed in there, or what I wanted to do, and what we propose to do anyway, we do want to have pavement throughout and no gravel at all. And also that's the reason for the barn, is to eliminate the container. And how the property sits right now, flow of emergency vehicles, parking, access to everything works where that location is. Anywhere else would be extreme excavation on the hillside with massive retaining walls. So it is doable elsewhere, but it would be major expense and work.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I think it's okay for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions for the appellant?
No, I do not.
Mr. Sine, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No questions.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
I don't have any questions either. Is there anyone on the line who would like to speak in support of the appellant in case 4-2021 BZA? Anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 4-2021? Last call. Anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 4-2021 BZA? This is a request for a variance at 211 5 Mile Road. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. Is there anyone on the line who would like to speak in opposition to the appellant in case 4-2021 BZA? Anyone on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to case 4? Last call. Anyone else who'd like to be heard on case 4-2021 BZA, 211 5 Mile Road? Okay, I don't hear anyone else, and I don't have any other questions. I think we can close the public hearing if there's a motion from the board.
Haber here, so moved.
Sion, I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes the public testimony of case 4, and that's agenda item number 3. So the next agenda item is discussion of case 4. Going down my list here, Mr. Halpin, any discussion for us?
It seems to me like it's addition to the property and likely be good sanity.
Mr. Sion?
Nothing really, but I don't oppose the change. We've made authorized similar structures in the past on side yards. There's similar circumstances just based on the topography. So I'm in favor of this appeal.
Thank you. Mr. Shekels?
Having visited the site and reviewed the documents, I'm in favor of granting.
Okay, Mr. Haber?
Totally in favor of granting the variance. With the remoteness of the property, the adjacent residences, the distance, it looks like there's only one driveway going by it. And that property owner is not available to oppose anything. So, citing staff's great job in their report, I would support granting the variance.
Thank you. I agree with all of that. I think it's not a substantial variance, wouldn't adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. I think this is what the variance process is for, and so I'm also in favor. Clear sense of the board is to grant this variance. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move that we grant the variance with the stipulations that are noted by the staff, and that it be started within a year and completed too.
I'll second the motion. This is Paul Sion, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 4. Mr. Eckerd, you are welcome to stay on the line through this. We will formally journalize our decision at the end of the hearing, probably about an hour. You do not need to stick around for that, though, of course, you and everyone else is certainly welcome to. But we'll journalize that later tonight, and you can call staff tomorrow to see when you can pick up your zoning certificate. Okay?
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Shuffle some papers here. I believe the next agenda item is consideration of case 5-2021, which is a variance request to allow a 16 by 19 addition with a rear yard setback of 30 feet where 35 is required at 1448 Grand Oaks Drive. Will the staff please present case 5?
Thank you, Mr. Nye. Our second case tonight, case 5, 2021 BZA, will be presented by our Township Co-op, Stefano Vicino.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, everybody. I will be presenting case number 5, 2021 BZA. The applicant for this case is Andy Boyd. He is the property owner, and the location is 1448 Grand Oaks Drive. The zoning on the property is B residence, and the request is for a variance to allow an addition in the rear yard setback of 30 feet where 35 feet are required per Article 25C 2C of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The proposed development for this case, the applicant is requesting construction of a 19 by 19 feet covered patio in the rear yard with a roof attached to the existing house, serving as an outdoor living area. The history of this property, a zoning certificate was issued on June 9, 2007 for a single family house with a 4 feet by 12 feet porch in the front yard. And no tenants, a different owner purchased the property in January 2008, and there is no other history other than that. This is a property map showing the location. The property is a corner lot, and it's facing Grand Oaks Drive. This is an aerial map showing what the outdoor features of the property and the neighboring properties look like. And then the topography map showing that the topography in the area is mostly flat, especially on this lot. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. Here we can see the existing residence, and then we can see the 16 by 19 feet patio. Here is a floor plan for the development. Here we can see that the applicant is proposing to put a fireplace, a stone bench around it, and countertops and cabinets in the living outdoor area. Here is a left elevation. We can see the column where the fireplace is going to be, and the outdoor additions and materials that are used. And here is a rear elevation showing the shape of the roof attached to the house. And here is a section showing materials that are going to be used matching the current property. This is a picture of the front of the house from Grand Oaks Drive. Here is a picture on the other side of the street. As you can see, there is 3 mature trees that screen the backyard of the property really well. It's barely visible from the street. Here is what the outdoor area of the property looks like right now. And this picture shows, this picture is looking north from the property's backyard, facing the adjacent properties to the north. And this picture is showing the property at the north and the northern property line. Here, this picture is the northern. This picture is facing the northern, the eastern adjacent house. As we can see, it's facing the garage of the adjacent house, and there are no windows at the bottom floor, and except for that side door, and windows at the top floor.
Just a reminder for those not speaking, if you can place yourself on mute.
And here is another look at the trees on the southern property line, green in the backyard. So now we're going to go over the staff findings. Staff is of the opinion that the variance would not be substantial. The rear yard of the property is well screened by mature trees located along the northern and southern property line. The proposed addition only encroaches into the required rear yard setback by 5 feet. The physical character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties do not suffer of a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The proposed addition is planned to match the existing residence and building style. The addition would face the side of the adjacent property to the east, which is where the garage is located, with no windows on the first floor. The addition would not be visible from the street due to vegetative screening. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament could be feasibly obviated through some other method other than a variance. The addition could be shortened by 5 feet and comply with the required 35 feet setback of Article 3.5C2C of the zoning resolution. An uncovered patio or an uncovered patio or detached accessory structure in the rear yard would be permitted. However, the applicant wants the covered patio to be attached to the house as an addition. Staff is of the opinion that the variance behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance based on vegetative screening consisting of mature trees along the northern and southern property line. The presence of similar outdoor features at neighboring properties, and the proposed addition matching the existing residence and surrounding features. These are the things that are to be considered, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions for staff?
I do not.
Mr. Sion?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No questions.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
My only question is to make sure I've got the dimensioning right here. The required minimum setback is 35 feet. The plans call for a setback of 30 feet, 10 inches. So it's encroaching by 4 feet, 2 inches if my math's right. I'm looking at slide 24, if that's helpful.
That would be correct, yes.
That's my only question. Mr. Halpin, do you have any follow-up questions based on that?
No.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, will the appellant or the appellant's representative please unmute yourself and state your name and address, please?
Andy Boyd, 1448 Grand Oaks Drive.
Okay, Mr. Boyd, will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us about this appeal.
Now, after reading, first of all, thanks for everybody's time. After reading the staff findings, I don't know if I can make a better case than what they already did. It's a unique lot because it's a corner. If you looked at one of those pictures and you look down the back line of other houses, if it wasn't a corner lot, this wouldn't even be an issue. Met with the neighbors that butt up against in the back, and they're excited to have the addition. Again, it's going to match the existing build and essentially hide all that stuff that was sitting out on an empty porch now anyway. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Halpin, any questions for Mr. Boyd?
No. Thank you, though.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No questions.
Mr. Haber?
Mr. Chair, I do have one question for Mr. Boyd. Sir, is it your current thinking that you would be adding any additional construction like an accessory building or something within your rear yard?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. I mean, we've talked about a pool back there, but honestly, I haven't investigated what the zoning requirements are for that. And it's a pipe dream at this point. but no other buildings, no.
Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Halpin, do you have any follow-up questions based on that? Mr. Sine, any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No question.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appeal in case 5-2021? Anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of Mr. Boyd's appeal in case 5? This is 1448 Grand Oaks Drive. One more time. Anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 5-2021? It's a request for a variance at 1448 Grand Oaks Drive. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal in case 5-2021? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal in case 5, that's 1448 Grand Oaks Drive. Last call. Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal in case 5-2021 at 1448 Grand Oaks Drive? Okay, I don't hear anyone. I think we can probably close the public hearing if there's a motion from the board.
Haber here, so moved.
Halpin.
I'll sign, I second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 6 is discussion of case 5. Mr. Halpin, you're the first one on my screen here. Do you want to start us off?
No opposition to the to the plan. I would be in favor of approving it.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Mr. Sine, you're next on my screen here.
I'm in favor of the appeal as well too. It's a corner lot. I've got a corner lot myself, so I'm kind of familiar with the way it's laid out and set up. And we've in the past we've looked at other similar situations where we've made those kind of approvals. So I'm in favor.
Having visited the site and reviewed the documents, I'm in favor of granting the variance.
Okay, Mr. Haber?
Mr. Chair, I am in favor of, along with my colleagues, of granting this variance here. And I want to bring up a topic for a couple minutes here of stuff that we've talked about before. And this is where we have, in addition, encroaching into the rear yard, which is required to be open space. And the last time we looked at this, I don't know, a couple months ago, we referred to an earlier case. That earlier case, I don't know if we went into much detail about it. The landowner that was behind the appellant was concerned about encroachment of the addition into the rear yard. And we were able to gain affirmation from the rear yard property owner by saying there wasn't going to be any other accessory structures, because the accessory structure could be even built closer to the property line. We followed that with a decision, I don't know, a couple months ago, 3 months, 4 months ago, and then referenced, had staff look that up. and I kind of want to get the rest of the board's position on this, because we're facing into necessarily a blank wall on the resident that's to the east that's going to be affected by it. I don't hear any concern. I don't think there would be any concern. And even though we've looked at those other cases, I think because of the peculiarity of this corner lot, as well as the garage and the higher window, which I probably believe is to be a bedroom, is that I am not of the opinion that we should maintain that precedent in this variance, and I am willing to grant this variance without the condition of there not being, without conditioning it as to no future accessory building. And that's my position. I just want, and I want to get the flavor of the board as to where they are with that issue, if that's fair.
And thank you, I appreciate that. And you're saying that you would not impose that additional condition in part because the neighboring property to the east is on the ground level, in particular, a blank wall. There are no windows there. There isn't a living space. That's the garage,
Right.
at least at ground level, and there may be something else up. That's your reasoning behind it. Is that right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. I tend to agree with you on that. Though, as you're talking through, referring back to earlier cases, I'm reminded of something that we have sometimes imposed in this type of case that I did not think to raise with the appellant, Mr. Boyd, and that was going to be a question about the mature trees that are along the south side of the property there. In the past, we have occasionally required appellants to maintain trees of that sort to screen variances, whether they're accessory structures or additions, I think. I don't know if we need to reopen the public hearing to do that, but I guess I would like to put it back to Mr. Boyd, who I think is still with us. Does he intend to maintain that vegetative screen in the future if the variance is granted?
Are you asking me?
Hold on one second. Brad, do you think we need to reopen the public hearing for that?
Yeah, why don't we just do a quick unanimous consent to reopen the public hearing?
I'd ask for unanimous consent to reopen the public hearing on case 5. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, case 5 reopened. Mr. Boyd, I'll put that question to you. There's 2 or 3 large trees on the south side of your property there. Do you intend to maintain those to screen that addition from the street?
Yes. And actually, if you look at the addition, part of where the fireplace is going to go is meant to screen the backyard. If anything, more trees will go in. So that's what I'm trying to do, is block the privacy from the street.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for Mr. Boyd based on that? And then we'll get back to Mr. Haber's issue. Mr. Halpin, any follow-up for Mr. Boyd based on what he just said?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No, thank you.
None, thank you.
Okay. I'd ask for unanimous consent to reclose the public hearing on case 5. Any opposition? Okay, case 5 closed again. We're back to discussion. Mr. Haber has raised the point that he would not impose the additional condition of no additional accessory structures in the rear because of the layout of the lot and the arrangement of the neighboring house. I think I agree with him on that point. It's not like the neighbor has a living space opening directly onto where this addition is. Even if they did, because of the nature of the lot, it might be an improvement to the neighbor anyway. It would be a little bit closer than it normally would be, but it would be enclosed. They might prefer that. In any event, we have no opposition here from the neighbor, and the appellant has represented that the neighbor, in fact, does not have opposition. I think in light of all of that, I think the variance is not substantial, won't affect the character of the neighborhood. The appellant intends to maintain the screen, vegetative screen from the south side of the property. I think the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed by granting this variance. So I'm in favor of it. Let me kick it back around again to give everyone a chance to weigh in on Mr. Haber's observations. Mr. Halpin, I'll put it back to you. Do you have anything to add or discuss with respect to that?
Well, the only thing I would add to that is that I don't know that it's necessary to throw it into this particular case, because if he would decide to do an additional structure in the back, you'd have to get a variance approval. And to me, that would be addressed at that particular point in time. Am I wrong about that, or?
I'll put that to Brad. I think probably you are. I think this would establish a new minimum setback on that, from that lot line. But I don't, this is what, double A? I think accessory structures can be much closer to the property line, and he could put in a shed, for example, maybe 3 feet from the line or something. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, if you wanted to install an accessory structure, it would need to be in the rear yard, which is behind the plane of the house right here. And it could be 3 feet from the property line as long as it's under 15 feet in height.
Okay. So he would not necessarily need to come back to the board for approval on that. Does that change your thinking of whether or not there should be a condition imposed here, Mr. Halpin? John, you still with us? Did we lose John? John has the worst luck with this thing.
It looks like he's got an exclamation point, but
let's give him a minute to get back on or reload or whatever. And let's see if anyone else has any comments. Mr. Sion, do you have any? Oh, I see John again. John, are you with us? Moving. I don't hear him. He's very emphatic there. I think he's saying no, he doesn't have anything else. I don't know. Let's maybe come back around to him in a minute. I can't wait till we're back in person and John just sits at the end and just waves his hands and doesn't say anything.
Amen to that.
All right, let's go to Mr. Sion. Do you have anything, either in response to Mr. Haber or Mr. Halpin, or any other comments or discussion?
No, I have nothing additional.
Okay, Mr. Shekels.
No, I have nothing else to add.
Oh, there we go.
John, go ahead.
I have no other questions. I'm okay with the request as it is.
Okay, very good. Mr. Haber, do you have anything to add? We're back around to you.
None, thank you.
Okay, I'm getting a clear sense of the board that we would grant this without imposing any additional conditions on accessory structures. I guess the only thing I would say is that I would probably impose a condition that the existing vegetative screen or something similar is maintained. The appellant is represented, he intends to do that anyway. I would include that as a condition myself, though I didn't necessarily hear that from the rest of the board. So, but the sense of the board is clearly to grant. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Haber here. Mr. Chair, regarding case number 5-2021 BZA 1448 Grand Oaks Drive, I move that the board grants the variance to allow an addition and an encroachment into the required rear yard. I'm going to include in that staff's findings, their report. There are 6 drawings dated February 11th, 2021, so that the addition would be in substantial conformance to those drawings, started within 1 year and completed in 2 years. and the condition, as you mentioned, is maintenance of those trees and vegetative screen from the adjacent roadway on the south side of the property.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 6. Mr. Boyd, we will journalize this later tonight. You can call staff about picking up that zoning certificate probably tomorrow. And you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting, but you do not have to.
Thanks for everybody's time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we amended the agenda to remove case 6. The appellant withdrew that case, so agenda items number 7 and 8 on my list here, we are skipping. If anyone is on the line for case 6, which is 8655 Trillium Ridge, that case has been withdrawn by the appellant, and you do not need to stick around, though of course we're always happy to have you for the other cases. The next item on my agenda is number 9, which is consideration of case 7-2021, which is a two-parter. It's an appeal of the zoning staff's interpretation of Article 3.1 D2 A, B, and C, or in the alternative, a variance request to allow a pool and an accessory structure in the side yard, but they're only permitted in the rear yard. This is 680 8 Mile Road. The appellant here is, who's it? Brandon and Jessica Painter. They're on the line, I think. Is that right? I think I saw them earlier.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're here.
We're here. Okay, great. Didn't want to start without you. All right. Will the staff please present case 7?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Nye. This is Brad Bowers with Anderson Township Planning and Zoning. And just to get clarification from the board, I think the way we're going to proceed with this one is we will present our findings for the appeal, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing of the appeal, and then the board will make their decision on that. And then based off of that decision, we will either move forward with the variance request and those findings, or that will not be considered.
Yes, please do that.
Okay. So thank you. Again, this is case 7-2021 BZA. The applicants are Brandon and Jessica Painter, who are the property owners of 680 8 Mile Road. The zoning for that property is AA residence, and the request tonight is a request for an appeal. The property owners are requesting an appeal of Anderson Township Planning and Zoning staff's interpretation of the definitions in Article 6.1 for front, rear, and side yard. And again, those definitions can be found at the end of the staff report. And then also Article 5.2B1D of the zoning resolution. The owner plans to construct a single-family residence on the property and is appealing staff's interpretation of where the front, rear, and side yard areas would be. The owner also plans to construct a 48 by 25 foot in-ground pool, a 4-foot high fence, and a 16 by 12 foot accessory structure to house pool equipment on the property. Township staff determined that the proposed pool and accessory structure would be located in the side yard area based on the layout of the lot and the orientation of the proposed house on the lot, which is not permitted per Article 5.2A7 of the zoning resolution. This determination was based on the definitions in Article 6.1 for front, rear, and side yard, and Article 5.2B1D of the zoning resolution, as the western property line is adjacent to a private drive which provides access to more than 3 lots. Since the western property line is adjacent to that private drive, staff determined that that is where the front yard area would be. Property owners are appealing staff's decision and have presented their interpretation of where the front, rear, and side yard areas would be once the residence is constructed. And this interpretation would put the pool and accessory structure in what the applicant considers the rear yard and in compliance with Article 5.2A7 of the zoning resolution. The proposed development, again, the applicant plans to construct a single-family residence on the property with a 48-foot by 25-foot in-ground pool, 4-foot high fence, and a 16 by 12-foot accessory structure to house pool equipment. The property owners plan to break ground for the construction of the house in the spring or early summer of 2021, and then the pool and accessory structure would be constructed as the final phase of the development in about 1.5 to 3 years. The property is a little bit of history about the property. It's a 7.745 acre lot of record with no frontage on a public street. The property is accessed by a private drive off of 8 Mile Road. Previously, there was a house located on the property which was demolished between 2015 and 2017, and then the current property owner purchased it in April of 2018. In December of 2019, planning and zoning staff stamped off on plans for a 30-foot by 48-foot barn on the property. This did not require a zoning certificate per Article 3.1C11 of the zoning resolution and Section 303.21 of the Ohio Revised Code, as the barn was used to support the property owner's family farming operation in Kentucky and Ohio. Articles 3.1C11 of the zoning resolution and Section 303.21 of the Ohio Revised Code allowed the barn to be constructed without a zoning certificate, as it met all the zoning requirements for an agricultural exemption from zoning. So that barn is on the site today. When the stamp off was issued for the barn, it was the property owner's intention to construct the single family house and the pool on the property at a later date. Township staff worked with the owners to determine an appropriate location for the barn, keeping in mind that a house would be constructed on the property in the future. The location of the barn was decided on based on the fact that it would need to be located in the rear yard of the lot when the house was constructed, per Article 5.2A7 of the zoning resolution. So here is a property map of the area. You can see this property has no road frontage, as it is a lot of record, and it was recorded prior to our zoning resolution taking effect. This is an aerial map of the property, and you can see the current barn that's on the site. You can also see Greenleaf Drive kind of wraps around this property, and then this is the private drive that was mentioned that accesses more than 3 lots, which is the reason for us determining this area to be the front yard area, since that private drive does access more than 3 lots. This is a topography map of the property, and you can see it's relatively flat except for the northeast and southeast corners where there are somewhat of a ravine. So here is the applicant's proposed interpretation of where the front, rear, and side yards would be. You can see here that they are calling this area the front yard due to the private drive, and this area all as the rear yard. For this interpretation, the pool, the fence, and the accessory structure are located in the rear yard area and in compliance. And here, and this is where the side yard area comes into question. They've drawn the side yard area as coming off of this corner of the house, as opposed to this corner where staff made the determination. So again, this is the applicant's proposed interpretation, and if approved by the board, the variance will not be needed. And again, this is staff's interpretation of where the side yard would be. We would consider the entire length of the house south of that to be the side yard area, whereas the property owner is requesting that the side yard be determined off of this corner of the house. And part of that is due to the angular kick of this portion of the house, but I can let the property owner speak more towards that. This was included in the applicant submittal, and this was a sketch that was, so back when we approved the barn to be on the site, we provided this to the property owner provided this to us, and the red arrows that are on this drawing indicate that if the house were to have been rotated to be facing 8 Mile Road, we could make the determination that the pool would be in the rear yard. And going off of these corners of the house, the applicant is requesting to have the property, the single family house face more in this direction, which is why we are having this discussion tonight. And then this was also provided by the applicant as part of the application. This is the original proposed area for the barn. And like I mentioned, staff worked with the property owner to come up with a different location for the barn, and that was to avoid having to get a variance for the barn to be located in the front yard once the house was constructed on the property. So I'm going to go through some pictures that staff took while we were on site. This is the private drive as you come right off of 8 Mile Road. So the property owner and then all of the other property owners on the private drive use this to get back to those lots. This is where the private drive splits, and this is the driveway for the property at 680 8 Mile Road. This continues on to several other lots, and that's why we're considering this to be the front yard and why a front yard setback needs to be maintained off that private drive. This is a view of where the house is proposed to be. This is the barn that's currently on site that did not require zoning approval. And if you're looking at this picture, the house is proposed to be just to the right of it. This is standing from where the barn is located, looking towards where the house will be constructed. And you can see some of the houses that are on 8 Mile Road there in the background, along with some of the other lots that the private drive accesses as well. This is another view of the private drive on the western portion of the property line. And then this is a view of the barn as looking from the private drive. You can see it's quite a bit of distance. And then this is a view of the house closest to the barn area. And you can see this is a property that is on Greenleaf Drive.
Well, I'm listening to it too, but
so staff findings for the appeal, staff used Article 5.2B1D of the zoning resolution to determine the front yard area as the western portion of the lot is adjacent to a private drive which provides access to more than 3 lots. The private drive off 8 Mile Road, which abuts the western property line, provides access to 4 single-family lots, meaning a 50-foot front yard setback needs to be maintained off of that private drive. If everybody could just mute themselves while we're going through the staff report, that'd be great. Staff determined that the rear and side yard areas, based on our interpretation of the definitions in Article 6.1 for front, rear, and side yard, staff determined the side yard area for the proposed house as the area south of the entire length of the house, and that was illustrated in one of the applicant submittals that I talked about just a few minutes ago. The orientation of the proposed house in relation to the front, rear, and side yard areas can have different interpretations, especially for larger homes that have many different angles. Staff believes that if the house were rotated to be facing 8 Mile Road, the pool and accessory structure would be interpreted.
Hey, Brad, can you pause a second?
Yeah.
There's a Robert Adam on the line. Mr. Adam, can you please mute yourself? We're getting a lot of interference there.
you got it.
Mr. Adam, can you please mute yourself?
You got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thanks.
I'm going to reread that last paragraph. The orientation of the proposed house in relation to the front, rear, and side yard areas can have different interpretations, especially with larger homes that have many different angles. Staff believes that if the house were rotated to be facing 8 Mile Road, the pool and accessory structure can be interpreted as being located in the rear yard area. Staff is of the opinion that the side yard ends and the rear yard starts at the far southeast corner of the proposed residence. So these are the articles of the zoning resolution that we use to determine the front, rear, and side yard. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has about the applicant's appeal.
Okay, Mr. Halpin, any questions for staff?
So I guess my question is, the house is not there yet. So and looking at the picture, is that driveway is not there yet either? Is that correct?
The driveway is there. It's currently a gravel driveway, and the property owner plans to pave that driveway. Right now, it's just a single lane, and I believe that they're proposing a turnaround loop, which I'm not sure if that's there or not yet. It was actually covered in snow while I was out on the site. But
Yeah. But right now that goes to the barn?
correct.
Okay. And, okay. That's just, I guess the orientation of the house can always change based on the future plans. But that'll be a different person question. No more questions from me.
All right, Mr. Sine, any questions for staff?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No questions.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, Brad, talk me through this. We determine, so section 5.1B, was it B1D? I think I've lost my page. It says that for purposes of this district, a private drive is a street, right? And
A private drive that accesses more than 3 lots shall be considered for establishing setbacks and yard requirements. That's how we establish the front yard area. Yes.
okay, so that drive on the west side is the street. It's not 8 Mile. It's not, whatever that is to the north. It's the private drive. And then the definition of the term lot says it's a parcel that has frontage on a street, and your front is where the frontage is, right? And
go ahead.
And then your front yard under the very last page of the zoning resolution says the yard extends on the front of the lot between from sideline to sideline and from street to structure, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how we get front. And then we get side is a yard between the main building and the sideline, and between the front and the rear. So we got 2 sides. And then rear, the question is really about what's rear. It's a yard extending across the rear of a lot between the side lot lines and being the minimum horizontal distance between the rear lot line and the main building or any projection thereof, other than some other things. So, in other words, you go from the rear lot line to the main building, which we're saying is the house and not the barn. The main building and any projection thereof other than stairs and unenclosed balconies. And that's how you get essentially the easternmost point of the house. From there to that eastern lot line, everything there is rear yard. Am I right about that?
Yes, that's how we.
As put forth on slide 48.
Correct.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to talk through that. Mr. Halpin, do you have any follow-up questions based on whatever I just said?
Well, just by the look of the way the house is being proposed, it would almost venture, at least for me, it looks like the pool is going to be in what I would consider to be the rear of the house, because the porch, there's one in the front of the house and one in the rear of the house. And then he's got that office bedroom, master bedroom off to the left of it. So if that house is going to be built like that with the driveway and the loop in front of it, then the pool would be, to me, it would be in the backyard. At least that's how I would view it.
Okay, anything else, John?
Nope.
Mr. Sion?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
I think what's leading somewhat to the confusion is the way the house is built. You know, I agree with the staff's interpretation of where the front yard is. And typically a house is built facing, the length of it is facing the front. In this case, they decided to build it, turn it 90 degrees with the length going the other way. And I think that's what's causing, you know, the visual confusion. You know, I mean, the front of the house is the front of the house, no matter how wide or narrow it is. I mean, but typically when we see a house on that lot, assuming, and I am assuming, and I agree with the staff's interpretation, if that house was turned 90 degrees, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. I think it's the length of the house that's causing the discussion.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's the front of the house and there's the front of the lot. And it turns out it's the front of the lot that determines where the yards are,
Right.
more or less. Mr. Haber, anything to add to that?
Can you go back to that last slide where you had the zoning variance, actual yard definitions? I think it's towards the very end. So down at the bottom, side yard is a yard between the main building and the sideline of the lot extending from the front yard to the rear yard. So in my interpretation of that, because we all, I think, are mostly in agreement with where the front yard is, and then it's a matter of where the rear yard is. And to me, that rear yard is coming off the back side of the house, opposite of the front of the house, and therefore, I would consider the pool at this point to be within the side yard. The barn is in the rear yard, and I don't know if I can do this and show you, but I'm even a little bit different from staff's opinion. And I don't know if this, that's not going to work. But anyway, the line between the side yards and the rear yards would be at that point of the house opposite the front yard. And it doesn't vary based on where the some arbitrary point on the house.
I think I understand what you're saying and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
In other words,
my interpretation is even a little bit more restrictive than what I think staff is saying, is that house that is on the far, is there a north arrow? In that the rear yard is one line that goes straight across from from property line to property line and doesn't vary based on just because the house is angled in a certain way.
I agree with you. Yeah. And I'm looking at slide 48. Brad or BJ or whoever, if you want to put 48 up there, I think that's what Steve was drawing on. Steve, I think what you're saying is you're looking at the blue line that goes from the bottom on the right, and it should be that line straight up. And
straight up.
To the right of that is the rear yard.
So the house is within the confines of the boundaries of the side yard. You've got the front yard, and then you got the rear yard.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree at this point with staff's interpretation.
Yeah.
And just to clarify from a staff standpoint, we will normally take it from the corner of the house, and that's why this interpretation was presented by staff.
Well, go back to that one slide if you can.
Sorry.
No, thank you. So the bottom line on the right, my interpretation is that it goes straight across to the property line on the north. Whether or not it jogs because of that slight angle in the house, I can go either way with that. The challenge is that the pool location is still within the side yard.
Right. I agree. Whether it goes off of that corner on the top or goes off the other corner on the top, either way, that pool's in the side yard. Either as staff has turned or Steve as I interpret it.
Right.
I agree with that. I'm sorry, Mr. Haber. Anything else there?
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's go around one more time. Any follow up on that, Mr. Halpin?
No.
Okay, Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No.
Okay, will the appellant or the appellant's representative please unmute yourself? State your name and address, please.
Brandon Painter, 8317 Jacaro Drive.
Mr. Painter, will you raise your right hand to be sworn, please? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think you've heard some of the comments from the board. I think we tend to agree with the staff's interpretation of this. I'm always open to being convinced about how to interpret this resolution. We're just talking about that right now. We'll get to the variance issue later if we need to, but go ahead and tell us anything you want to tell us.
I think only to, and I want to keep on protocol for the meeting, but I can tell you that I think Brad would advise that the only reason there was appeal on my letter was at the advice of Township to do so, and that I understood his interpretation of the side yard and that we would be at a variance. So I apologize for the last debate in that. The angular kick to the house is intended to match the angular kick of the barn. And the angular kick of the barn is there because of meetings that we set with Paul and Brad when planning the barn and planning the lot in 19. It's in that position and it's kicked to allow the interpretation off those corners. The red lines were drawn and provided to Jess and I at the Township, which if we left that meeting in 2019 confused, then we left that meeting confused, and that is okay. I would tell you that at this point in time, I'm fine to concede the appeal and move on to the variance discussion. But I still would like to have my house at that angle on the property due to the factors that I put in the letter. I think that staff's report on the discussions we've had and on the property, I think it's ideal. I have nothing to add. I think it was great.
Mr. Nye, you're muted. Mr. Nye, you're muted.
I think that's the first time I've done that. What I was going to say is I think having heard that, I'll exercise some administrative discretion here. Rather, unless there's someone who's really dying to be heard on this interpretation issue, let's go ahead and just move on to the variance. Because I think I got a consensus from the board, and we can vote on that if we need to. But I think maybe at this point, just in terms of administrative efficiency, let's talk about the variance, and then let's tackle the rest of it all at once, unless anyone objects to that. I'm not hearing any objections, so let's have staff present the variance aspect of it then.
Great. Okay. So now we'll move on to the variance request. The property owners are requesting a variance for a pool and accessory structure to be located in the side yard where they're only permitted to be in the rear yard per Article 5.2A7 of the zoning resolution. So again, this is the proposed site plan that was presented to us. And you can see here that the pool and the accessory structure are both in the side yard area. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The property in question is a 7.745 acre lot, and the pool would be set back 218 from the nearest property line, with the accessory structure located further from the nearest property line. The closest residence to the proposed pool would be approximately 305 feet away, and neither the pool nor accessory structure would be visible from a public street. Further, if the house were to be rotated to be facing 8 Mile Road, the pool and accessory structure would be in the rear yard area. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The variance was approved with Case 7, 2020 BZA for an accessory structure located in the front yard setback area for the adjacent property to the west at 684 8 Mile Road. The shed that was approved in that case is located within the front yard setback that's required off that same private drive. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The property owner could relocate the pool and accessory structure to be in compliance with the zoning resolution. However, the location of the pool is desired based off of the floor plan of the proposed residence, as the pool is proposed to be off the main living area of the home. In addition, the proposed residents if the proposed residents were rotated to be facing 8 Mile Road, the pool and accessory structure would be in the rear yard area. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed based on the size of the lot, the proximity of the pool and accessory structure to the nearest residence, the visibility from a public street, the orientation of the proposed residence on the lot, and the approval of Case 7, 2020 BZA. So these are the standards to be considered for the variance request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for the board.
Do you have any questions on the variance aspect of this for the staff?
Nope.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Shekels?
No.
Mr. Haber?
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any either. Mr. Was it Painter? I know you're still with us. I know you've been sworn. Is there anything you would like to add to the variance aspect of this case?
I feel like it's covered. I don't have anything other to add than the layout of the house lets us really enjoy the property, and the angle of the house, the angle of the barn lets us enjoy the property, the way that the house is designed.
Sure. Mr. Halpin, any questions for Mr. Painter?
Did I hear that it was going to be 2023 when this is all going to be completed? Or approximately?
Yes, sir, I don't have a pool contractor on board, and what I have found is the pool construction industry is pretty backed up with COVID. So I do request, it will be the final phase of our construction, is our intent to proceed with the pool, which is why we're putting this much energy into it now. But I don't know that I will be able to get someone on board in a timely fashion after the house is constructed. I have to have the house in place for the most part, and then I have to get somebody there. So I'd love to have some time associated with it. We are finalizing design of our home now in probably the next couple of months, and we hope to start, June, July on the home.
So then how far out would you like this to be approved for?
I would like to have 3 years. I think I'm probably 16 months from having my home done. I would prefer to have 3 years.
So 2024.
If acceptable.
Okay. No more questions from me.
Mr. Sine, any questions for Mr. Painter?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you. I do want to express my appreciation to Mr. Halpin for visiting that the time period requested.
All right, I don't have any questions either. We'll move on to anyone who'd like to speak in support of the appeal here. Is there anyone on the line who would like to speak in support of the appellant in case, what is this, 7-2021?
This is John.
Yes, I would.
Okay, I think I heard two people. I heard a "this is John." Was it John maybe Burton?
John Burton, yes.
Okay,
Hello.
let's start with John Burton, and then I know there's at least one more after that. Mr. Burton, will you please tell us your address first?
It's 660 8 Mile Road.
660 8 Mile Road. Will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
We've lived at this property since January of 1999. And the way our house sits, it's across that private drive. You can see it in a couple of photographs, but we have a lot of windows. We have a sliding glass door in the kitchen and windows in the kitchen and the great room that face the property. So it's hard for us to not see the property. It's a beautiful, unique property. I think we've heard the term a lot tonight, unique, but it is very unique. And just when I met Brandon, when he bought the property, I could tell, he's very transparent about what he wants to do. Very transparent about the barn that was built. He's very considerate. He has great plans for the property. He's very appreciative of the trees and a lot. I have even regardless of what's considered the front or side yard, I have no objections to the plans.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Halpin, any questions for Mr. Burton?
None.
Mr. Simon?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burton. I know there's at least one other person on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant. Can you please identify yourself? Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 7?
I would.
Who's that?
It's Jennifer Taylor.
Hi, Ms. Taylor. Can you please tell us your address?
It's 688 8 Mile.
688 8 Mile. Will you please raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you please tell us anything you'd like to tell us?
We're the property south that connects to Brandon and Jessica's property. And I just wanted to say we do not have any issue with the proposed plan whatsoever.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right, Mr. Halpin, any questions for Ms. Taylor?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
None.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, we've heard from Mr. Burton and Ms. Taylor. Is anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 7? This is 688 Mile Road.
Yes, Jeffrey P. Weiner, 684 8 Mile Road, but unfortunately my camera doesn't seem to be working.
Okay, we can hear you just fine, Mr. Weiner. You said 680 what?
684 8 Mile Road. I stare directly at the barn that that Mr. Painter has put in.
Okay, can you please raise your right hand to be sworn?
Yes.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, before you start, Mr. Weiner, were you in front of this board like 6 months ago or maybe a year ago on a request for a shed?
Yeah, so it was the shed issue in question. And I think one of the things that's important to point out in this little cut up piece of land back here is my house actually faces, let's see, my house is actually facing east. My house next to me actually faces north, and the house on the other side actually faces west. So these houses back here are all turned around, but I will say that Brandon and his family have been absolutely fantastic. They came to us when they were talking about the barn, came to us again with their plans on the house. So we are really looking forward to them to becoming neighbors back here as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Halpin, any questions for Mr. Weiner?
No questions.
Mr. Science?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
None.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weiner. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellants in case 7? Anyone else who'd like to speak in support of case 7? All right, one more time. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellants in case 7? This is variance requested 680 8 Mile Road. Okay, I have not heard anyone. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to the request in case 7? Please unmute yourself and identify yourself. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal or neutral on the appeal in case 7? Asking one more time. Anyone else who'd like to be heard on case 7? This is 680 8 Mile Road.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make some comments.
Who's that?
My name is Jeff Frank, POA. Live at 8451 Greenleaf Drive.
Raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Real quick, I'm sorry, sir. Can you state your name and address one more time? You kind of broke up there for a second.
Certainly. My name is Jeff Branca, Branca. I reside at 451 Greenleaf Drive.
Great, thank you.
Our property is adjacent on each side. We share about over 400 feet of frontage on the east side of the property. And I mean, we have some reservations about this. The barn has been placed within 100 feet of our property and has really had an impact on us for a variety of reasons. One, we already have traffic that comes in on the private drive. It's right in the back of our house every evening that they drive into the property. And like everyone else, we live in the back of the room. And we're below the drive, so that's one item. The other two, I don't know how to interpret it, but clearly the pool would be inside of the, and it's not in the back as the zone requires. I just asked.
Mr. Branca, I'm having some difficulty hearing you. This is PJ Ginty. Would you be able to repeat the last half of your testimony? I got the issue about the traffic and the location of the barn, but there was something else that you mentioned about the pool.
Our view is that the pool would be in the side yard and it doesn't conform to the code, to the zoning requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Branca. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions for Mr. Branca?
I'm just looking at the aerial photo and I'm wondering where his house is and look relative to the, did he say it's east of the barn?
It's east of the barn.
May we share a screen?
Sure. Slide 53.
Okay.
Is that your house on the left?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Halpin, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Branca, did you say you wanted to share your screen? I don't even know if we are able to do that.
That's not necessary.
We can do it. If I can try real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go nuts.
Let me stop sharing mine.
This is the original.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
This is Laura Branca. I'm not sworn in, so I don't know if I need to be or if
Yeah,
my
would you
husband
please
is
raise your right
sworn.
hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is the property before the demolition of the original house right here. I hope everyone can see that.
Yeah.
And here is our home over here, which is fun. We've lived here 25 years. We've enjoyed the view. Here's here's a Burton house. Here's a Weiner house. So we've all enjoyed the view for years. Here's another view of the property again. And this is what Jeff, I think, or Jeff was referring to, how the houses face different angles. And that's fine. We're fine. This is the rough outline of Mr. Painter's property here. Here's our house, and here's where the barn was selected to go. Out of all this nearly 8 acres, this is the barn. The driveway comes in right about here. So every time a car comes in, it aims right into the entire back of our house. So, you know, when we looked at this, you know, we were not notified there was no variance because of this was agricultural property. So the barn was built there for purposes of having animals on this property is what Mr. Painter proposed. So anyway, so our point was, if this is the front here, they put the barn in the rear, and now they want to turn the house to have these views of the land, where our view is now so obstructed by this very tall barn that is uphill as well. Now they want to put the pool in, which would be another structure back here, which from our side yard would be also noticed back here as well. If the house were tilted the way it would be, here would be the front, it'd be the house, the pool, and the barn, the way that typically it should be considered. So that's our frustration, is that out of the nearly 8 acres, here's the barn here. It's outside our view. Every time we look out our house, the driveway goes roughly about like this. So the cars driving in point into our house the entire length of the driveway. The house will be built here the way it is. Also, every time they come in, the headlights come straight into our house repeatedly. So that's our frustration. It isn't so much that we love the paint. We think they're building a beautiful home, and it's nothing personal. We're just frustrated with the fact that the painters want to appreciate the lot. We too, as 25-year residents, want to appreciate the lot as well. And I feel like they're putting up the barn and these other structures for the view. They've impeded our view considerably, and also what we feel has lowered our property values as a result.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, either of you?
Here's another aerial of our view, the driveway coming straight into the back of our house. The headlights you can see come straight to the back. The pool building will be about here. Again, we will see it from our side yard, which is not as frustrating as the barn, the eyesight of the barn. And here's the graphic of here's how they come in on the driveway, and every time the lights come in, straight into the back of our home, and not just 1 or 2 rooms, the entire back of our home. And as mentioned earlier, people live in the back of their homes, just as the painters want their pool and everything else to take advantage of this beautiful view. They would not have the lights given the selection. So enough said.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions for the Broncos?
How would they best be able to help stop the lights from bothering you?
In the zoning requirements, I thought there was a request for vegetation as part of the plans, and we did not see any vegetation. We're also running into, and Mr. Painter tried to fix it, but now our side yard is a soggy mess because of the elevation of his barn is up, and now the drainage is going right to our side yard. With the addition of this is on a hill. All this water and all the construction, everything is heading towards our home, and now we're having water issues. So I don't know. I don't know whether swells can be put back there or trees, you know, spruce type trees along this line of sight to hide that. But very clearly right now you can see that there's you can't really tell, but there's an elevation down, and we're getting all the runoff into our side yard right here from all of this construction. And I know, Brandon, I know you tried to do something when you were putting the barn up, but it's still horrible back on our side yard. And it was never that way before. And I know this isn't about water issues, but again, nearly over 7 acres, nearly 8 acres. And I feel like it's all focused right on our home.
I have no other questions.
Okay, Mr. Sine, any questions for the Broncos?
Yeah, I do have a few questions. I guess first question is, how many vehicles do you estimate per day? And I assume this is more at nighttime concern with the lights shining in your house. How many vehicles do you guess come by?
Last night there was, I'd say 4 or 5 vehicles came within after dark between 6 and 9 o'clock.
And there's
Right, there's no house.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bronca, I couldn't hear you.
There's no residence there. And we have, last night, which I think is indicative, there was 5 vehicles coming and going.
So is that on average each night you're seeing 4 to 5 vehicles?
I'd say at least half the weekend that's happening, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Halpin did address the landscaping. Do you feel if there was some sort of landscaping plan included with this, would that alleviate any of your concerns?
I'm confident it could be remedied.
Especially if it included some sort of, took into consideration the visual as well as the typography with the water drainage too.
Okay. I have no further questions, Mr. Nye.
Thank you. Mr. Shekels, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Haber, questions for the Broncos?
Thank you.
I have a question, I think. Mr. Bronco, one of your comments early on in your statement was something to the effect of the zoning resolution requires a pool to be in the backyard, and their proposal is for it to be in the side yard, and you think that shouldn't be allowed. My question is, if we require them to put it in the backyard, wouldn't that put it closer to your house?
Put it between the barn and the home, right?
Well, it could be anywhere in the backyard. I think the current proposal, and I'm looking at slide 47 or 48.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Stop sharing.
It seems to me that the barn will probably shield the pool from your house. Do you think that's inaccurate?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this slide, and obviously the right half of it is a reproduction of their home construction plan, but your house is sort of, if I'm seeing it right, it is kind of roughly in the area of where that arrow is depicting the curve of their driveway. Is that correct? It may not be.
We can go back to the aerial slide if you'd like to.
Yeah, that might be better.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the aerial slide shows the existing gravel.
So that's your house just directly to the right of the barn, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's not off of Greenleaf there. There's kind of 4 houses in a kind of a triangle, and your house is the one at the top. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So what I'm seeing from their drawing is it's sort of, and this may just, it's a little hard to tell, but it looks to me like the barn may shield the pool more there than if we required them to move the pool into the rear yard, which would essentially be moving it east somewhere. And maybe that would be between the home and the barn, or maybe not. But it's hard to see how it would get more shielded. Is there something I'm missing, or are we just kind of interpreting the drawing differently?
I think it's a difference of interpretation. I mean, again, there's nothing there. We're just working off drawings.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. That's true. That's true. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. But Mr. Halpin, do you have any follow-up based on anything you've heard since you got the question?
No questions from me.
Mr. Sion,
No, none for me. Thank you.
Mr. Shekels,
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Haber.
None, thank you.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Bronca, thank you. Let's see if there's anyone else on the line who'd like to speak on this one. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard with respect to case 7-2021?
This is Brandon Painter. I'm unsure of the due process. I assume I'm not allowed to respond.
We may come back to you. Give us a few minutes. Let's hear from everyone in opposition first, please. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to the appellant in case 7? I see a Robert Adam and a Stephen Dowderman on the line. Would either of you like to be heard with respect to case 7?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, I think that was Mr. Dowderman. Mr. Adam, would you like to be heard with respect to case 7?
Mr. Adam, it looks like you're calling on the phone and you are muted on WebEx. I'm not sure. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Great. All right, I think that's everyone who has been on the line. I didn't miss anyone, did I? Everyone. We have a couple call-in users, maybe. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to be heard with respect to case 7? Last call. Okay, Mr. Painter, let's hear from you again if we could. We heard some concerns from your neighbors about the visibility of the pool, the proximity of the barn to their house and the view. Obviously, the barn is where it is already. Some lights and some drainage issues. I'm not sure all of those necessarily go to the appropriateness of a variance, but is there anything in response to that you would like to tell the board? Anything you think we need to know about any of those things? And obviously, I'm not asking you to. This is not a forum to air grievances of neighbors, but is there anything you think we need to know about anything else we've heard?
What was that about? What's the last part that you said?
I said, is there anything else you think we need to hear in response to any of the concerns that have been raised?
Yeah, unfortunately, like as soon as the Broncos were given control of the WEBEX, lost all sound and had to call back in. So one of the call-in numbers is myself and my wife. So I really didn't hear a lot of what was going on, but judging by what I did hear, I'm probably good with that and relieved. What I will tell you is that I put the barn in the location that it's in because of guidance from the township. I explained that in my same conversation on the barn with Mrs. Bronca. I also talked about putting additional vegetation back there. She told us early on when we moved in or when we bought the property that she liked looking out at the property and watching animals. So we have specifically kept it mowed down for their line of sight out of their back of their home. So I also invested money, effort to solve the drainage issue that she speaks of. There is clear, visible drainage from my barn through a swale that I have installed that drains to the back of my property. There is groundwater throughout that entire site that I have found with various operations, and there's definitely moisture over on that property. It is not something that I can link back when I can find dry ground between my barn and their property that sits much lower. But I have tried to do what I can and invested money to do so with some drainage under my barn, as well as a swale that I've cut in and maintained the entire time, as well as upgrown vegetation to try to break any type of water or silt runoff. You see in the picture that was shared that I installed silt fences when I installed the barn. Once again, I installed the barn where the township advised me to install the barn. So I wanted to put it right up by the private drive so I could save about $12,000 and to get it all the way back there. And I accommodated that because of what the township advised in the rulings to try to avoid a variance and the stress associated with the last 2 hours of my life. So I think the barn 100% blocks, and if it doesn't, I'll put something in the line of sight. The pool will not be an eyesore from their home, no more than my view of their home from my pool or my backyard. So no, I did not expect this, but I don't intend to rotate the house, or I mean, I don't believe that's fair. I think this is about the pool.
Okay, thank you. I will tell you, since you said you missed some of their comments, that I think the other things that they were concerned about are headlights from the driveway shining into their backyard. They said they know you've done some work to address the drainage issues, but it doesn't seem to have worked from their perspective. And I think those were the other main things that you may not have addressed. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Halpin to see if he has any follow-up questions for you.
No, I don't have any other questions other than to say, is there the possibility of adding larger trees between the driveway and their house to make it kind of give a little bit of a coverage to cut out the lights?
I didn't speak to the lights just because there's some obvious responses to the lights. Am I allowed to speak to the lights first and then talk about possible remedies of those?
Yeah.
I oftentimes, when I go there after dark, which is often, I have to drive there because I live a mile and a half from there. When I live there, there will be less traffic, I assure you, other than normal comings and goings to my home, like anybody on the call probably has. Their house sits down in a lower area that puts the back of their house right at eye level for the headlights. Regardless of where I put the barn, my driveway was going to have a turnaround in front of it, and it was going to go back there, and the headlights are there. I try to turn them off when I can. My wife and my new driving kids do not turn off the lights because when they've tried, they drive into the yard. I have various fountain grasses on the property that I could transplant and block the view, and the Broncos will never look at that property again, and I'm fine with that. Any vegetation that goes in back there would have to be pine trees, smaller trees to block it, because it is any type of hardwood that would be consistent with the properties that I would like to see is gonna lose its leaves in the back, and they're gonna be in the same boat. But the headlights, and I have to drive there to go use the property. That's why there are headlights. When I live there, I'll simply walk outside.
Mr. Halpin, any?
Yeah, no more questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sign, any questions, follow-up questions for Mr. Painter?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
I don't have any follow-up questions, Mr. Painter, other than to say I'm not sure that the headlight, drainage, and barn visibility issues are related to this variance. And so I'm not sure they're going to factor in our decision. Obviously, whether or what you might do to be a good neighbor is up to you and not something that I think this board is probably going to address in this. So I'll leave that to you and the Broncos another time. I think we've heard from everyone who's on the line, and I think we can probably go ahead and close the public hearing on this if there's a motion.
Mr. Chair, Haber here. I do have questions for Mr. Painter I understand that he wants to put a pool and an accessory structure to the pool. And I'm not sure that we have any description as to what that accessory structure is. I see I think a dashed rectangle or something on the rectangle, but I don't, beyond that, I don't have any other information. And so that when we make them, when our motion, I think I'd like to put in some definition as to what that accessory structure is.
Mr. Painter, do you have any specifics on the accessory structure? You propose I think a 16 by 12 accessory structure. Do you have any more information about that?
I do not at this time. The house is in design to be finalized shortly. It would simply, it's really kind of a backup if our plans to be able to utilize our geothermal system for the pool, as well as house the pool equipment more as part of the home and not have an accessory structure out there at all. If we would have something out there, it would be for pool equipment, and it would be built to match the farmhouse architecture of the home.
Okay. Any follow-up?
That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And if I could, this is Brad with Anderson Township. This was not mentioned in the staff report, but one of the conditions that we had talked about internally as staff is that should this variance be approved, the applicant submit a revised site plan that's survey stamped. All single family houses that we issue zoning certificates for need to be for a survey stamped site plan. And then for any additional details for the pool, the fence, and the accessory structure as well. So should this be approved, one of the conditions are that we request a revised site plan, and that would show further design of the house, the pool, accessory structure, and fence.
Mr. Bowers, Haber here. Are you looking for a complete survey of the property of all meets and boundaries?
Yes. Yeah, all single family houses that we issue zoning certificates for are required to be survey stamped.
Thank you.
One more time around. Mr. Halpin, any follow-up based on anything you've heard?
No new questions. Thanks.
Mr. Stein?
No, thank you.
Mr. Shekels?
No, thank you.
All right, and we're back to Haber, who I think had the last word. Okay, I think we're ready to close the public hearing if there's a motion.
So moved, Haber.
Paul Stein, a second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Mr. Haber, aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 9. The next agenda item is discussion of the case. I'll start it off because I don't necessarily want to impose this on anyone else. We obviously started this case with discussion of staff's interpretation and the applicant's proposed interpretation of where the yard lines are. I think the applicant's interpretation is incorrect. I think the applicant is ready to move on from that. I will say that I think I agree with Mr. Haber that actually the staff's interpretation is very nearly correct. And I think the rear yard is actually a little bit smaller, but I don't think, that's not really material to the pool issue, which is on the other side of the house. So the first thing I would say is that I would affirm, for all intents and purposes, staff's interpretation of the lot line, and that takes us to the variance request. The standards to consider there, the main ones we look at is how substantial the variance is, character of the neighborhood, and so on. It is an unusual lot in an unusual location. The character of the neighborhood would clearly not be altered, in my opinion, by permitting a pool in what is, in fact, the side yard. Would not affect the character of the neighborhood. The spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be met if we granted that variance, and so I'm in favor of it for that purpose. I do want to address, as I said earlier, some of the other concerns that were raised. I think most of the neighbors supported it. the neighbors that didn't, their concerns are not particularly related to the location of the pool. They do have some apparent objections to how the property is used and where the barn is and so on. That's not really before us here today. You know, whether the owners want to do anything to try to alleviate those concerns. I'd certainly encourage them to just be good neighbors, but that's really not within our purview, I don't think. So I would be in favor of granting the variance in this situation. I understand they need some additional time to probably get that installed based on construction schedules. So I would be in favor of granting it, subject to the conditions that staff recommended regarding additional site plan and giving them an extended timeline to do it. That's all I've got to say. Now I'll run it around the horn. Mr. Halpin, to you.
I'm good with all that you said.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sion.
I'll throw in my concurrence as well.
Okay, Mr. Shekels.
Yeah, I concur with the staff interpretation, and I agree with Mr. Nye's assessment.
Okay, Mr. Haber.
Totally in agreement with what you said and any additions that the rest of the board has added to it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Haber. Are you looking for a motion to affirm staff's interpretation, which would then trigger the variance, and then we can make a motion for the variance?
I was actually going to ask staff how they want to do this. Do you guys want two resolutions on this? Do you want one affirming the interpretation and a second addressing the variance, or do you want one resolution that addresses them both? I think either way, probably we should vote on them separately, quickly, but then whether we do it in one resolution or two, we'll defer to you guys on that.
Yeah, so we've drafted one resolution. I think we can do it all in one resolution.
Okay.
And if you
sort
feel
of a two-parter.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's clear sense of the board is to affirm staff's interpretation of the resolution. So let's take a straw poll on that first. Again, I'll do it just so nobody else has to. I would move that we affirm staff's interpretation of the applicable section of the zoning code in terms of interpreting the yard, the boundaries of the yards at the parcel.
Well, Haber, you're out of order, but I second it.
Am I out of order? I can make a motion, can I?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure chairs are in Robert's Rules of Order.
I thought we talked about this. I thought I could. All right. Well, fine. Steve, you make the motion then.
No, I second it. I second it.
Okay.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. All right. I'll look that up before the next meeting.
We'll check the bylaws.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to the variance then. Again, the sense of the board is to grant the variance subject to the conditions, I think, of an additional site plan, a survey, an extended period of time to do the work. I will not make the motion on that because I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, Haber here. Let's see. Case number 7-2021 BZA, where the appellant is requesting a variance to construct a pool and accessory structure to be located in the side yard. I move that we grant the variance. I'm going to add to that staff's findings. And I gotta do it. Preliminary based on drawings dated February 12th, 2021. That is drawing C100B. That the pool and accessory structure be completed construction 3 years from the date of this granting, that drawings including a stamped survey, another site plan, locating the pool, adjacent to the house and location on the property. I think that's it.
And a timeline to that too.
Well, I just said to be completed within 3 years. You know, typically we'd say start within 1 and finish it with 2, but we could say start within 2 years and completed within 3. But this is going to be this no later than the summer of 2023. So I'm just saying to be completed within 3 years.
That sounds good. I'll second that motion.
Before you do, could I suggest that we give them 3.5 years? Nobody's putting a pool in spring. I don't think that's usually a summer thing. If it spills over into 24, I don't want them to have to come back. Just a suggestion. Feel free to reject it.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it 4 years. You know, 3.5 years it is. Is that 36 plus 6, 42 months?
42 months. Is there a second to that?
Second that. It's Paul Sion.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that completes agenda item number 10. All that's left is to journalize the several cases from today and one from last month. Anyone else who's still on the line, you're welcome to stick around. You don't need to. This is just a review and approval of the document that we will then sign probably tomorrow. Again, welcome to stick around. Don't have to. If you want to call staff in the morning, they can tell you when you can pick up a zoning certificate. All right. So let's move on to journalization of whatever is next.
Yeah, I am pulling up the resolutions here. Just 1 second.
What's the story on case 6? They're withdrawing entirely, or do you think that they're going to be back at some point?
Go ahead, PJ.
Yeah, so according to the applicant, they were withdrawing completely. So barring any sort of issue with a fence company or a change of heart, they've withdrawn completely.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm pulling up the resolution for case 3, 2021, which was a denial. And this has been reviewed by Township Special Counsel. And I'll go ahead and share that now.
Can you increase the view there?
Yeah. Do you want me to zoom in or zoom out?
Yes, please. Yeah, don't make it small. Don't make it small.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Let me know when you guys are ready.
I'm good.
Yep.
Same here.
Brett, I was going to be that guy that mentioned you to tab over there. So.
I caught it before you.
I got a question. This is from last month, right?
Correct. Yeah, we held off on the journalization of this case so that township staff and our attorney could review the resolution since it was a denial.
Okay, thank you.
Looks right to me.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, regarding case 3-2020 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
I'll second it.
Let's call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Well, I agree that that accurately reflects our decision. I voted no and would have granted the variance, so I think I have to vote nay here. Okay. In case that wasn't clear. All right, that's 3.
Okay.
What's next? 4?
Can you zoom in, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good, Brad.
I'm good.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, regarding case 4-2021 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
This is Paul Sion. I second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. All right, case 5.
Yeah.
On 1, the encroachment into the setback was closer to 4 feet, if I remember right. It was only 4 feet, 2 or 4 inches, I think.
Yeah, it was
4 feet 2 inches for those of us who are keeping score.
Number 4, those first 2 sentences.
Yeah, the first one. Gotta go.
Oh, whoops. The second one would need to go then, Brad. Right?
No, the first one's gotta go. Well, I mean, the entire paragraph could go, really.
Yeah, I mean, since it's not necessarily
not supportive.
Yeah, we can get rid of it if you guys would like.
Yeah, take it out.
Good.
Looks good so far.
Shall we not put in a condition of maintenance of the vegetation to the south?
Yes. You're right.
Maintain the vegetation, yeah.
Vegetative screen on the southern portion of the lot.
That's the one that we talked about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On your head note there too, do you have 4-2021 or is that your 5?
Oh, whoops.
Good call.
Good call.
Catch.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, regarding case 5-2021 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
This is Paul Sign, I second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Science.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Right, there's no case 6 to journalize. Case 7.
We may need to add to this one. I don't know if we included everything we needed to for the appeal, but we get there.
Or Brad, you could just put. Oh wait, never mind.
We'll wait till we get down to that section. Or, well, I guess it's here. We could add a paragraph or something that states that staff's interpretation of the zoning resolution was upheld.
Yeah.
Or you can simply say that they withdrew.
Yeah,
I didn't concede.
Or so we say
But I
upon
think I would just
appeal
put in
and
a-
request. We
I
could
would just put in.
Go ahead, PJ.
Maybe just put in the upon appeal, the Board of Zoning Appeals upheld staff's interpretation of Article 6 point, whatever the definition is, the rear yard, side yard.
Okay.
You got Article 3.1.
Yeah, that on the agenda was actually incorrect. I'm going to reference the staff report.
It's 5.
6.1.
5. It's 5.1, isn't it? 6 is the definitions.
Yeah, it was an interpretation of the definitions.
No, but it was,
And then we also cited Article 5.2B1D for the private drive.
2D, that's what I was thinking, 5.2 D1B.
How does that sound?
That works for me.
That's not the right section though. 52A7 is accessory structures.
Oh, you're right. I'm
5.2
sorry.
Bravo 1 Delta is drives and yards.
Good catch.
Can you go back down a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brad, we could probably remove number 4 again.
Yes.
Number 4, you have staff is of the opinion. And I think just the spirit and intent.
Then will be observed.
Is it a lack of visibility from a public street? I think all that looks right to me.
Yep.
You all wanted to do 3.5 years?
I think we said 3.5. Yeah, but we also didn't necessarily stay started within 1. I think he plans to start the house within 1. I don't think he necessarily plans to start the pool that quickly.
Right.
We just say completed within 3.5.
Right.
And I think we will actually need to.
And we said 3.5 years too.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's 3.5. Okay, we should stay in a half. I don't know if it matters.
So do you want to say that? Do you want to delete 1 and say?
I think 3 takes care of 1.
Right. Yeah, and add to what is now 2. Subject to staff's approval of those or something.
What if they come back with something totally different?
That's a good point. Should we somehow reference the plans that were submitted? So maybe
So Brad,
instead of
I would say leave this here and then just say to be in conformance with plans dated February 12th.
That's fine. I still think we ought to reference the.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think the language you want is that the revised stamped site plan is, must be in substantial conformance with the plans that were dated, whatever that date was. So they'll be more detailed, but they'll still substantially conform to the plan that we reviewed, right?
Yes, I think that's a good way to do it. So that'd be February 12th then?
I don't know.
And
Yeah.
should we say C100B?
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And this condition wouldn't prevent them, because they could, what if they change the design and they're all in compliance then in what staff determines to be the rear yard? So say they do for whatever. Okay, just making sure that didn't box them in.
After 3.5 years, and that's that. Right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing with upholding staff's decision is if they do decide to do anything else in that side yard, they will need to get BZA approval for it, obviously.
Right.
Okay, cool.
And Brad, the fence being referenced here, is that the fence around the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I say
Of the applicant.
and approved by staff, or is that necessary?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
How do you spell label?
You're going to have to approve it anyway.
Yeah.
Is that spelled wrong?
I think there's another E there between the B and the L.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't know why I didn't catch it.
No, it looked a little weird.
Labeled
Working
must be the
catching it,
word.
didn't it? See the red squiggly.
All right. Do the conditions look okay here?
I think so.
So you talked about it. Go back down again, if you would, please. Submit revised survey, stamped site plan. Will they know that it's a property?
Say that one more time.
Will they know that it's of the entire property?
Fred will tell them.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, that's just a requirement of approving a zoning certificate.
Yeah, even if we didn't mention it here, they got to do that to build the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're good, Mr. Chair, regarding case 7-2021 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. All right, that concludes the final agenda item. Do we know what's on tap for April?
I don't think I've
haven't had
heard
anything. Yeah.
No. There was one conditional use that we had spoken to a while back. I don't know what their plans are, but as of now, I don't think we have anything on the agenda.
Okay, we'll see. That concludes our agenda. I think.
Motion to
Is there some
adjourn.
objection?
Second.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
We're adjourned.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Good job.
Bye, you guys.
By the way, hi, Amy. Nice
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Amy. And
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
This is Amy.
Nice to see you guys.
All right. Well, we'll see you next
Good
month.
job, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
See ya.
Good night.